streaming the meeting via the governor's Facebook. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call this first meeting of the Build Beyond Barriers Working Group to order. And with that, I will hand it over to Scott Glenn.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Scott Glenn. I'm the Governor's State Housing Team, and I'll be helping facilitate this meeting as we start the Build Beyond Barriers Working Group. First, I'd like to just thank everyone for being here. I know a lot's going on, and a lot of your attention needs to be also in other places, so we appreciate your time and attention. Before we really get into the agenda, what I'd like to do is just pause with a moment of silence to share and think and reflect and pray for our families on Maui, those affected on Big Island and throughout the state experience. Everyone. With that spirit in mind, I think that speaks to why we're all here today and recognizing the purpose of this working. Just a little bit of housekeeping items to get started. First, you should have a blue folder with a packet that has the agenda, the emergency proclamation, the rules, the guidebook, and a statement of commitment that we would like you to look at and consider as we go into this meeting, because we're willing to make this commitment. And we'll get to that later in the agenda. Also, just general housekeeping, there's the restroom just outside this door, to the right and to the left, and by the exit. There's also coffee and tea available. We had it out in the waiting area. It's going to get moved in this area just outside the door, so you don't have to go all the way back out if you want to refill your. The couple things in the agenda, we'd like to first have some opening remarks from the Chief Housing Officer, Nani Maros. We'd also like to do introductions. I think a lot of folks here maybe have worked with each other or know each other to some degree. But we also would like the public to have a sense of who we are as working group members, why we're here, what our purpose is, what our role is, and how this work affects us. So as we do our introductions, when we get around to that, to the degree you feel comfortable, maybe consider sharing a little bit about where you're from, the island you're from, or part of the island you're comfortable sharing, maybe how you have perspective or experienced the housing situation, and then also how you see your expertise contributing to the proclamation and what you'd like the emergency proclamation. And with those in mind, try to keep it to a couple minutes because we're a big room. So, try to keep. But I think that can also help us get to know each other better and help the public also know us better and our purpose and why we're here, what we bring to it. So I'd like to now turn over to Nani. Please pardon, I know we have some startup logistics going on in the background, so apologies for that for folks watching. But let me turn over to Nani to give some real opening remarks on this effort.
Thank you, Scott. I want to echo his sentiments. We're very grateful that all of you could make it to join us today, both in person and on. There is a lot going on. I want to acknowledge Sterling. I appreciate the effort you made to come. We have the entire Maui County delegation coming. Obviously, tragedy and crisis. But Sterling was able to come and join us, and our aloha is with you and your family. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the leadership of the administration and our values. Bold action, collaboration, passion, and decisive leadership of this administration. And I would like that to carry over into the work we conduct here within the working group. I want to stand shoulder to shoulder with all of you. Solve Hawaii's housing crisis, as well as to help Kopua what we can do in Maui, if called to do so. I want to talk a little bit about transparency and the process that we use to develop this emergency proclamation. Over the course of the last 7 months, we met with over 200 people and organizations, many of whom are in this room, if not all of you. We spent hours and hours with me and my team providing direct feedback on what your processes are, what you self-identified as challenges in building housing, and what MEP could do to help provide more housing while still respecting and caring for our INA, our people, our natural resources like life, and the emergency proclamation and rules that were developed took all of that into consideration, including public input. To our commitment of transparency, all of these meetings will be televised. There will be virtual ability to join for working group members. The meetings will be live streamed on Governor's Facebook page forward. We also will make available to the public documents from the meetings, including agenda, summary of minutes, and any materials that are distributed for members.
Thanks for joining. So what we're doing is having a set of open remarks and thoughts. This is a conversation, Robert's Rules of Order.
So that's actually the conclusion of my remarks. I'm going to hand it back to Scott now to continue on.
Thank you, Nani. And with that in mind, we're gathered here. Folks have flown over from Big Island. Maui would have been here today, but couldn't. We all understand why. We appreciate Big Island, Hawaii Island, being able to make it by coming over. I think you guys have a lot on your plate as well, and so appreciate the prioritizing. What I'd like to do is just go around so we all get to know each other, and help us again understand who we are. So maybe what we'll do is start. Nani, you already introduced yourself, so maybe Hakeem will go to you, and then we'll go around the table, around to the folks sitting against the wall.
Yeah, good morning.
And just as a note, name, agency, and then if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your home, how housing crisis has affected you, and then also how you see the emergency.
All in 2 minutes. Hakeem Wansafi, I'm with the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. How it's affecting us? It's affecting us in many ways. As a housing agency, we know how housing is, especially when we have tens of thousands of people laying up. Anytime we have 200 or 300 units available, in the hopes that they're going to be on the wait list to be able to get one of those. On a personal level, it's affecting us when my eldest son, an attorney in Pittsburgh, decided not to come back to Hawaii because the AP, I think it's really, in my opinion, it's a godsend that will help us avoid, as Nani said, well being considerate to the public environment.
I'm Mary Alice Evans, a resident of Waimanalo for over 50 years. And I started with the Office of State Planning in 1987 and have been with the office in and out ever since. I have the pleasure of co-chairing the Council, the Transit-Oriented Development Council, to accelerate planning around mixed-use communities with housing for local people. So, I enjoyed working with everybody, I think. I'm just really excited to be up here. Personally, my 2 adult children can't afford to live. What to do. My daughter's a teacher. My son is an environmental law specialist. I was a little more affordable, they might be able to.
I'm Minakami. I'm with the Hawaii Housing Finance Development. It affects available projects applications that come in were oversubscribed on a 4-to-1 basis, on a 4-to-1 level. Offers applying for. There is a tremendous demand, also maintain our infrastructure and HSEC management. First, also, we're hindered by government or other regulations that just order for staff to do their job. Level, I have 2 siblings, both don't live in Hawaii, partly housing.
Before speaking, if I could just ask everyone as you speak to speak loudly, project your voice. So it might feel a little bit like we're shouting at each other in the room, but also there's folks watching online, and Tang, our IT lead, is moving the microphone around to this end of the table. So yeah, please be considerate of folks online as well.
Try to not take that comment, Chris, from me, especially with the mic right in front of me. Good morning, everyone. I'm Colton Cheng. I am the physical manifestation of Shelley online. Shelley's, Maui team supporting me. Hawaii Electric, our core job will serve and provide electricity. Communities. I was born and raised on the island of Maui. Personal connection to the housing issue is of 50.
Morning, I'm David Bissell. I'm from Kauai Island Utility Cooperative, and we're the other electric company that serves Kauai. I want to talk a little bit about the business side of it and the difficulty the housing market makes on getting quality people, even for an electric utility. We're one of the highest paying companies on Kauai, and it's becoming almost impossible to recruit people from the mainland to come over. We just can't pay enough to cover off on the housing side. So it's becoming, and we hear it all the time from other businesses, impossible to bring people over. Business side is that. Personal side, I've got the same thing. I've got a daughter who's graduated law school. As you know, have a house someday. I don't think I can ever afford one in Hawaii, so they're in that problem.
Hello, everybody. Zendo Kern, Planning Director for Hawaii County, former Planning Commissioner, former County Council member, been a general contractor since I was 24. My whole world's been in land use, government, and development, from the entitlement side to the actual going vertical to horizontal side, all the way around. I grew up born and raised on the Big Island, born in an unpermitted shack out in North Kohala, extremely poor, moved deep into the jungle of Puna, which again was in a small studio that eventually was added onto to create a home that wasn't permitted. We had the ability to get the home permitted in the mid-90s, which was a big deal. That actually allowed my family to not have the struggles of that high mortgage at the time, even though it wasn't conventional. And so while we were really, really poor, we had a roof over our heads. And growing up in a very poor district of the island, many of the folks I went to school with and their kids, it's not really an option to have a home. And it should be. Right now, our biggest export in Hawaii is our children. So it's really an honor to be a part of this working group as it hits so close to home, and really really looking forward to, diving in and being part of the solution.
Aloha, I am not Susan Lebo. I am Alan Downer. I'm the administrator of the State Historic Preservation Division and the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer. I grew up in New Jersey, so I am relatively new here. You know, our business at SHPD is to protect and manage the state's historic and cultural resources. We are involved, obviously, in permitting housing, and our workload is such that we cannot simply deal with things on a first-in, first-out basis. We just, so housing is one of our priority activities, dealing with that, and it's still difficult for us to keep up. Sort of my personal connection, I'm lucky enough, I came here during the economic downturn, so I am personally in pretty good shape because I get housing that is below today's market rate by a considerable portion. On the other hand, my stepdaughter, who is, you know, lives with me, will never be able to afford a house, and right now could not afford rent if she decided she wanted to move. So, you know, I'm glad to be here. I hope we can rotate something.
Thank you. I'm Daniel Oradanker. I'm the Executive Officer for the Land Use Commission. From a professional standpoint, we have a frustration in that we keep approving projects and then they don't get built. And to us, there's about 65,000 units that we've approved that have not been constructed. Bottom of that. From a personal standpoint, like everybody else, I have 3 children who have wonderful professional careers, but all live on the mainland.
Well, I'm Adam Roversi. I'm the director of the Kauai County Housing Agency. I'm from the North Shore of Kauai, and like a couple, I was lucky enough to be able to acquire my own house 20 years ago. Today, I wouldn't be able to. And we're watching our Kauai residents grow up and leave Kauai.
Passing the microphone.
Oh, I'm super loud too.
There's that.
I mean, we'll just put it a little away before we blow out people's ears. Aloha, everybody. I'm Tricia Kehaulani Watson-Sproat. I own Honua Consulting, so I'm here, I think, in that capacity, but I also do a lot of not only private sector work. I think I've worked with pretty much everybody in the room. I also do a lot of nonprofit work. My connection to this, State of Hawaiian, lots of friends and family on the wait list. Additionally, I'm the oldest of 10 grandchildren. 7 have moved away. So it's really hard to see my friends and my family unable to stay here, especially as Native Hawaiians. Same as many of you, all our kids are adults, none can afford to buy. They can barely afford to rent. My son is in college. I'm desperately trying to get him to come home, but he just sees no viable future in coming out of college, and being able to get a job where he would be able to live on his own. So absolutely thrilled to be part of the solution, and thank you, Nancy, for inviting me.
Aloha, everybody. I'm Dawn Apuna from the Department of Planning and Permitting. We do a lot of, obviously we do our permitting, which we're trying to streamline and speed up for everyone's sake. And we also cover some affordable housing programs like 207, PAB, et cetera. I often think about my staff. You know, these are the plans examiners, the inspectors, the clerks that are working on these permits, et cetera, and they will never have, you know, the ability to own and deal with the challenges of
Good morning, everyone. My name is Stanley Chang, and I represent the East area in the State Senate. I also chair the Committee on Housing, and I've felt for a long time that this is the biggest issue here in Hawaii, is our housing shortage. father, who was an immigrant from China, came here with nothing, buy a house. To buy that same house today, a UH professor with one state salary, and for me, with my state salary, to buy that same house would take me. And I have watched with alarm over my entire life as a somewhat young person, you know, all my friends and family leave, and I'm just told now that she is getting crisis level attention from the administration always deserve.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Christian Graham. I'm the Deputy Managing Director. I'm here on behalf of Mayor Rick Blangiardi. Housing is his top priority, just like it's Governor Green's top priority. We have a wonderful relationship working with Nani and her team. Hope to extend that to this entire group. Another one of our priorities is hiring, and this is something that I think David noted and Don noted. Directly impacts our ability to hire personnel that we just cannot based on the housing conditions right now. I want to tackle this.
Good morning, everyone. For Hawaii County, for the planning and management of Hawaii County's housing programs, and for the most part, those are funded federal, state, all to produce housing. So as we know, you know, the stats show that in order for Hawaii County to meet from it, we've made a lot of progress. We have about 6,500 units pipeline, and I'm kick out some of those units and I went away to college in the mainland. I was so fortunate. It was quite a few years ago, but I was very fortunate to be able to come back home. And I see friends and family, their children, are not able to do that, and it's very frustrating for me. So I'm very excited to be a part of this.
Sterling Higa, Executive Director of Housing Hawaii's Future, a nonprofit with the mission of next generation. On a personal connection to Valley there in Nu'uanu, though I now live on Maui with a wife and 4 children. Rent a 2-bedroom house and definitely could not afford that house or most. I look at my children. Our oldest are 9, 11, and 13. When they're adults, would they be able to pay? And the trend is not moving in the right direction. The last and most pressing, there is going to be a tremendous need for housing on Maui. And whatever part this group plays in helping that will mean.
Aloha and good morning. Dave Arakawa. I'm the Executive Director of Land Use Research Foundation, and that's a group of home builders, agricultural landowners and operators, renewable energy companies, and those involved in the tourism industry. I am from the island of Oahu, from the same hometown as Ernie Lau, Waipahu, and born and raised in Waipahu. And my experience with housing started in, believe it or not, 1983, attorney for a number of housing developers that built homes in Kapolei, West Loch, Ko'olina, and the Kunia area, among others, and in the neighbor islands. Served on a number of working groups relating to housing, the EIS rules, renewable energy and state historic preservation division. Worked on a number of those issues. And, personally, we moved up the housing ladder, in the early 80s. So we know renting and then, you know, condos and then buying a house, so I'm familiar with that. And so, we're excited about what we do. Our daughter was lucky enough to buy a part of the family home, my wife's family home, but my son, who's in his early thirties, can't afford to buy a house. So, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Wayne Tanaka. I'm the director of the Sierra Club of Hawaii, our environmental advocacy organization. We also spend a lot of, in that role, we spend a lot of time asking critical questions and trying to get to the bottom of some of the issues that our islands dealing with in terms of environmental and cultural integrity, in terms of waste of resources. I don't own a home. I tried. We just could not compete with some of the continental folks who are also looking to purchase property here in the islands. In terms of otherwise, personally, in the last 10 years or so of my life, I've worked in at Office of Foreign Affairs doing public policy. Number one issue for beneficiaries was housing. So we had to spend a lot of time ferreting out the many facets that create housing instability amongst our beneficiaries. Very complicated crisis, emergency. I think that, and I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that not everyone is affected by this emergency equally. Housing is an emergency for some people, less so for others. The other way that housing issue has affected me is seeing how the gravity of the crisis for so many folks has often led, I think well-meaning attempts to push forward policies that may not necessarily directly address the issues and cause more harm. Conversations we have in this, in this forum, will may be able to ferret out some of those kind of details. I did have a question though, because since the chair is talking about transparency, the chapter 92, just in terms of legal compliance, I don't want to make sure that we don't get sued. So the chapter 92 suspension, it says to the extent that notice requirements any other provisions may delay the expeditious action, decision, or approval of any board or agency. So I'm wondering what specific provisions of chapter 92 have been suspended, and specifically 92.3.
After that, after the introduction. All right, attorney.
There's a place for Q&A at the end, so we'll take it up then.
Do you mind speaking up?
Joe Tate, Manager, Chief Engineer, Hawaii Department of Water. Can I just have a raise of hands, how many people are here from Kauai? As you can see, Kauai is all in on affordable housing. We have been since I got on the island 22 months ago, but Kaina and Adam and Michael much longer than me. My personal story, 3 months out of a hotel when I was recruited to come to Kauai. Finally found a small ohana on the west side, or I would still be in a hotel. Find it with the majority of our islands that we have a housing situation. Challenge this group not to come up with creative ideas, but to actually build things. Visited Kauai and Oahu and other islands for 20 years. We have watched it year by year as we've come over, less and less terrible. I work with folks around this table who have offspring that in no way can afford homes on the island, and most of those adults are looking at mainland colleges.
So it's not just the housing issue, but the housing issue that are from, like, so challenge this group to come on and feel and touch and live in. Had creative ideas in this state for many, many decades. And we're at a point now where we need.
Morning, everyone. Michael Hill, for County of Kauai, Department of Water. I'm planning and engineering and infrastructure developments on homes, but with my daughter and my son, we're going to university for potential areas.
Ernie Lau, Honolulu Board of Water Supply. Very basic needs, safe drinking water, food, housing, shelter. We are doing our best to try to make sure that safe drinking water is available. Personal note, my daughter is ready to graduate college next year. Got a career in medicine. I'd love her to come back and be a doctor here, serving our community. Pray that she will be able to.
Carl Bonham, Executive Director at UHERO, the University of Hawaii Economic Research Organization. Unlike Senator Chang, I'm somewhat old, and so all of us who are somewhat old have children who really can't, struggling. They're either struggling to pay their rent or to deal with trying to find a place that they could afford, or they've left. And so really, everybody has told stories about how housing is affecting everything. It does affect everybody differently, but everything from hiring, us at the university and recruiting, and all of our children. In my professional capacity, UHERO has a very active research agenda in housing. So my role here is hoping to provide the statistics and the policy research that can this group. But some of the research we've been doing has been around the regulatory barriers and the impact that has on housing. And so in a longer term vision, I'm really hopeful that the things that this committee, the working group accomplishes and learns can make permanent changes in the way that we deal with housing in Hawaii, that not just during the life of the emergency proclamation. Very hopeful, and thank you for the
Morning, everybody. Keith Okamoto, Manager, Chief Engineer, Department of Water Supply, County of Hawaii. I'm a little bit flipped of my friend Colton Ching down there at the other end of the table, born and raised Kaneohe, but married a Maui girl. But we've been on the Big Island since '96, partially because we couldn't afford either Oahu or Maui. Otherwise, I'd probably be like Colton and living on Maui, in-laws nearby. Similar to what has all been said already, housing has affected our recruitment, retainage, and like Ernie said, we feel our role as a Department of Water Supply to provide safe drinking water impacted by that as well. Our total employment count has remained about the same or slightly decreased over the past 12 to 15 years. I too have an adult son who's in college, And I also pray that he can come home and help keep our local talent here in Hawaii. But without something being done, it's going to be a huge, significant challenge for them. I too am honored to be part of this group. I hope to see some progress moving forward. You know, I understand that there's concerns with protecting our resources. You know, we're, as you probably all know, a lot of us, born, raised here. We don't want to see our resources be mismanaged in any way. I really don't think that's going to happen, and I'm going to make sure that, you know, my perspective, that doesn't happen. But at the same time, I think we need to move forward.
Before we go to folks around the table, I just want to thank our guests calling in, our working group members calling in, and ask them to also do an introduction.
Shall I go first?
So, Shelley, would you mind?
Nope, not at all. Aloha, everybody. I'm calling in from Maui. I call Aea, Oahu, my home. And my children are the 5th generation on my dad's side to live in Aea. But when I look at all of my cousins from my dad's side, my brother and I are the only ones remaining in Hawaii. And our family is at the point where it makes more sense to have Thanksgiving or Christmas on the continent rather than having it in Hawaii. For our company, we have employees leaving to the continent because they can't afford to buy a home or they can't afford the cost of living in Hawaii. And our workforce and our best paying union jobs aren't enough for employees to stay here and be able to buy a home. We have even been talking about creating our own workforce housing to ensure that we have the employees needed to provide the essential services to our state long term. So this is a very important conversation. As a company, we talk about our role in Hawaii. While our core role is to provide electricity, we see our bigger role in creating a sustainable future for Hawaii so that for generations people can thrive. And sustainability is not just the environmental sustainability that you often hear about, but it's the economic sustainability and the community sustainability. And being on Maui right now and seeing what's happening and recognizing how important Ohana is in resilience and the importance of extended families and people staying with extended family when they don't have a home and getting that kind of help and that built-in resilience of our communities. It's so fundamental and foundational to the fabric of Hawaii and what makes us special. And as more and more families get broken up because they can't afford to live here, we're breaking up the fabric of Hawaii. So I'm very honored to be a part of this discussion, and Hawaiian Electric is honored to be a part of this discussion, and we want to ensure that we're doing what we can to ensure the critical infrastructure needed for priority housing is completed in a proactive way and in close coordination and laser focus with the rest of the people in this room. So thank you.
Kim Mailani, could I ask you to introduce yourself next?
Oh, aloha mai kako. My name is Kilmailani Hanapi Hirata. I'm calling in from the island of Molokai. It's nice to see all of you folks and be in that room. Aloha to Keha Watson. I see you all the way at the end. So on Molokai, on Molokai, we live a different lifestyle. And for me, I am part of one of the generational families. I can trace my genealogy on Molokai to time immemorial. I live and I was raised on my ancestral lands, my Kuleana lands in Manae. And so on Molokai, as all of you folks know, we are rich in our history and our culture, and we practice our cultural protocols, our practices, our Hawaiian values in our everyday lives. We are taught how to hunt, fish, and farm from the day that we are born. We understand that. And we understand the balance between land and people. And so for me, I kind of questioned on how I was sent the email, and then as I reviewed the paperwork. So I sit on the Molokai Island Burial Council. I am the chair and the Molokai representative. I also sit on the Molokai Planning Commission. And so this to me is very important. I did consult with other people on my island, some of our elected officials and some of our grassroots organizations in the talking about housing and what that looks like, and just making sure that Molokai has a voice, because our needs on our island is different than other needs. We pay the highest utility rates in the nation. That is a fact. We pay the highest of imports and a lot of things. So the economical stressors are for real. But we also know how to live with our aina. We don't live on it. We live with it. And houses. I was raised on aina, on a shack on the beach my whole life. My older sisters have traveled the world and lived in Macau. And one sister is in the military, and we've all come back to Hawaii. I never left, but they have come back to Hawaii because they can see that the importance is, how do we bring our people back? How do we make changes? Housing is very important for all of us. But on Molokai, housing and the definition of creating housing is different than Oahu or any other cities throughout Hawaii. So I'm humbled to be here, and aloha, you folks. Mahalo.
Thank you, mahalo. Steve, do you mind?
Yes, good morning. Aloha, everyone. I'm Steve Housey. I'm the Director of Public Works here for the County of Hawaii on the Big Island. We obviously have quite a role in housing, working cooperatively with folks there, Zendo and Keith and Susan, processing permit applications, issuing permits, managing multi-agency reviews, and just generally working with the building codes. Like others have stated, we have significant challenges with attracting and retaining personnel, and housing is a big part of that. Our department has over 450 positions, of which I think we've got about 70 open presently. And it's laborers, equipment operators, and engineers. It's affordable housing is probably one of our largest challenges, and really thrilled and honored to be part of this group to be working towards solutions. Thank you.
That's our members calling in remotely. We have other members here in the room we haven't had a chance to introduce. So maybe if we could start with DBED and then work our way around the room.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jimmy Tokioka. I'm the Director of DBED.
Do you mind? Yeah.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Jimmy Tokioka. I'm the Director of DBED. We have 3 agencies that are participating in this working group, so thank you, Nani, for that. I've been in elected office for 26 years and now with the administration, and so often during that time we hear how no can. And I'm hopeful that with the brain thrust in this room and the cooperation and the efforts moving forward, that we can figure out how can. Because I have 2 children. My son lives here on Oahu, but he had to find a roommate because rent is expensive, and he doesn't have, the money to put down for a payment to get a house. My daughter lives in Flagstaff, Arizona, who wants to come home, but it's not easy and it's not cheap. So, everybody has the same type of feeling about living here in Hawaii, and great things with this, for allowing DBED to be a part of this.
Hello, everybody. Dave Wicker, Deputy
Thank you. I'm sorry, we're getting a little tight on time, so maybe, I know there's folks here who are helping support their working group members, so maybe, apologies, if, we could go to Kaina, to introduce yourself, and then I think Kathy and Louis are also working group members.
How's it all? I'm Kaina Hall. I'm the planning director for the county of Kauai. Deal with everything everybody said about housing. Just ready to roll up the sleeves and get to work. Thanks, all.
Kathy Ho for Department of Health. I am the Deputy Director for Environmental Health. I share everything you all said. My one unique story is I have a daughter who is a second-year teacher on the west side and is living.
Louis Oliveri, Director of Finance.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So I guess just to wrap it up, Nani and I introduce ourselves. Scott Glenn, I'm with the Governor's State Housing Team, helping Nani out with this emergency proclamation, helping the Governor out with other matters as well. And my wife and I moved here several years ago. We also were fortunate enough to be able to rent and then be able to get a mortgage for a condo. And looking around today, I don't think we would be able to do that ourselves. And we certainly want to help give back to Hawaii and be able to contribute to the families here any way that we can. Nani?
Aloha, everybody. Nani Medeiros. I am a single mother, born and raised here in Hawaii, the youngest of 4 children. I have never owned a home. I have rented my entire life until 2 years ago when I met my kane, and now we live together in Kaneohe, and we have 3 girls between us, all the way at college, and we would love for them all to be able to come home as well. With the amount of stories we've just heard in this room that mirror exactly what we hear in the public from people all the time about our kids leaving and not coming back, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of Hawaii are we going to leave? What kind of Hawaii are we growing for the future if the people who live here are not our own people and kids that we raise? It will be a very different Hawaii in 20 years. I'm really excited to hear all of the experience around this table and the passion and thoughtfulness and personal commitment. So thank you for all of that energy, folks. I also want to very quickly introduce our working team, our housing team in the Governor's office. Back there we have Cami. We've got Chico there. Rick is somewhere around. Joining us from the Attorney General's office, Deputy Attorney General Linda Chow. She was our main author on the emergency proclamation along with a whole team of AGs and the main AG, Ann Lopez. And anybody, Tang, our IT person you met earlier.
Thank you, everyone. And I really appreciate you all actually sharing some personal notes. I hope that helps people understand where we're coming from and why we're engaging in this work. It helps kind of get beyond the headlines and the titles and the government to show that we're all people, we all are part of the community, and we're all trying to do our best in the roles that we have. And I just want to note too, again, thank you to the counties for especially coming over here. I noted that we have housing, planning, water, and public works, all involved, and so that really means a lot to have that kind of depth and bench being brought to the conversation from the. We do have a statement of commitments that we had prepared for your all review. Since we're again running a little low on time, what I'd like to do is ask you guys to review it. If you have any thoughts about it, to follow up with them. But this is what we would like this working group to engage from this point of view, to bring a level of professionalism and expertise to this discussion, to prioritize attending when you can, and if you can't, working with us to designate an alternate. And really, you know, this meeting is more of the rolling up the sleeves part of the rolling up our sleeves and get to work. So the next meetings will be more robust meetings with real discussions about how are we helping agencies, what projects are we examining, what are some of the specific issues that we're going to dive into. Again, this one was just really more to kick it off, get going, get us all acquainted with each other, let the public know who we are, and then we'll get into the more detailed work at future meetings. Nani, do you have anything to add about the statement of commitment? Then with the time that we have, we'd like to move into questions and comments, mainly about the emergency proclamation. itself, although, I want to recognize that Wayne had raised a question. I don't know, Linda, if you had a response or a thought that share or...
Extent, list or other provision, these expedition action decision.
And I think what we'll also be looking to do is and that calendar maybe will have sufficient notice. That's something we try to keep ahead of time with folks.
How would that help?
Can we follow up with this?
So, the reason why I'm, kind of concerned is because I think someone, excluded, a member of the public, counsel for Sierra Club, an attorney, from this meeting, and he pointed out that there's, public meeting. I mean, you don't, not necessarily input, but there's provisions in 92 for public attendance meetings, and I don't see how allowing someone to listen in is a expeditious action, right? So, again, I don't want us to get sued. And that's why I tried to raise it in the beginning, because if this meeting is legally under the proclamation, then we're opening ourselves up for litigation.
Well, thank you for raising that case, but certainly we'll take your back end work. Attorney.
Not forcing it on the calendar, and not letting people.
I actually have a real substantive question. So, I mean, if we can table that, I mean, so are we, and sorry, wait, I'm happy to do that, but if you guys can sidebar that kind of stuff, I mean, I think everybody in the room is, one, super busy, and two, I actually do have real questions, so can I ask those? So are we gonna get the materials in advance? I understand you're putting it online, and I appreciate that, but I do think it would be helpful for everybody in the room to get things as early in advance as possible. And then what is the expectation? We just come to the meetings with comments? Did you want written comments from us? Like, how can we be most effective?
Working group, members will receive meeting materials prior to the meeting, and we'll provide as much, notice as we can. So, for example, if we were to get an application in for a housing project, we would want to make sure that we get that out to the appropriate, working group members as soon as possible, to the extent that we can have everyone start their work and their reviews. For example, we still want Zendo to do his work over at planning if it's a Hawaii Island project. Same with Susan. We'd want them to come to the next meeting prepared to discuss it. Having done their homework, everybody's doing their own homework, me and my team are gonna be doing our homework, and we show up ready to discuss. Not necessarily ready to decide, that's going to depend on the feedback we get. If there's a lot of concern, if there's, criticisms, we keep working through it, but we try to work through it as quickly as possible. For other applications, that might be much simpler, like they want to exercise specifically the exemptions that are created for staffing purposes. Those decisions might be able to be made a bit faster, those conversations might happen faster at the working group.
Do you have any sense, and I just have no sense at all, how many applications you're anticipating, and in what, like, how quickly they'll be coming in? Are you anticipating them I mean, are we talking hundreds? I mean, I don't see many coming in, to be perfectly honest. So I think for just everybody managing their own personal workloads.
We're not expecting hundreds. In the world of the 50,000 units, we were able to identify in the 10-year pipeline of projects that are out there. And by no means is that list 100% accurate. There's quite possibly some projects out there that we had not found yet or heard about. But out of that 50,000, the majority of them come from 24 projects. So I don't expect us to get hundreds of projects.
Like 24, so that's kind of a good number that you're looking at, 20 to 30 over the course of the year?
That, I mean, even that I think is a huge
Ambitious.
guess, because we're assuming that it would be those projects with the most number of units that would come to the working group, and that might not necessarily happen. And given the crisis and emergency that's unfolded in the past 72 hours, you know, I realize there is a second emergency proclamation specifically for wildfires, but if counties or state agencies or people want to come and apply under this emergency proclamation to create some type of housing and emergency housing on Maui, then that I think, you know, will also be willing to.
Last question, I promise. When we get the applications, I know oftentimes we need additional information. So will there be an opportunity to say if we get an application in, whichever agency or subject matter expert says this isn't enough information, or I think it is, can we request that additional information, and is that better to get that to you sort of immediately in writing, or should we wait till we're always convening?
Yes, you can request it. I think you could either do it in writing or verbally, but probably as soon as possible is the best thing to do. So, but we definitely want all of the working group members to continue. You are here to advise. You are here to advise us with your background and expertise. And Ernie Lau down there is to tell me about water. And Seaworm is on the working group as well. They weren't able to join us today. So definitely, if you need more information, ask for it, and we will reach out to the project proponent.
Thank you.
I'm trying to
speak up. I have just one simple question I'm getting, and I promised I would bring to the group, and that is the EP process an alternative process? Can a landowner or developer still go through the normal process? I mean, I'm being asked that question by commissioners.
You only use the alternative process if you apply for certification, 12 criteria that's in the emergency rules, and it goes through this process and gets approved. That's the only way that you get the benefit of what's in the emergency proclamation. And yes, anyone who's doing a project can choose not to use the emergency proclamation and just go through.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can I just underscore that point, that when Nani mentions 50,000 units in the pipeline, this is known world. There's other projects out there that we may not be aware of, or might be being developed, and people might be. But that doesn't mean all of these projects are immediately under the emergency proclamation. It doesn't mean that when DPP is approached by a project developer that they can just say, I'm covered by the proc. That is something that comes out of a formal certification. So if that formal certification step hasn't. Are there other questions or clarifications? I note that we're at 10:30, and we maybe can go another 5 or so minutes before we lose the.
I had one question. Oh.
And if we take time out, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, hi, sorry. Hi, aloha. I have a few questions that maybe you guys we can table it, but I want to just try to get it out there on the record. I wanted to know how the Sunshine Law applies in here. Is in this process, is there a process for community and public engagement? Even contested case opportunities? That's pretty much it for now.
Sure, I can give an answer, and then we can also have Linda, comment as well. So, our intentions in suspending, the Sunshine Law and how it applies to these groups is that, or to these working group meetings, is that we will be as sunshiny as possible. So by, streamlining these meetings online so that people can watch them. If people wanna make comments to the working group or about the working group meetings, I think they can email the, gov.housing@hawaii.gov. Prior to projects coming to the working group, project proponents are required to have at least one public meeting. It can be a town hall, neighborhood board meeting, whatever they want. They're also required to post a publication, get 30 days of written comment from the public, include all those comments and their responses in their project application. They also have to do things like the kapa'akai analysis, an environmental analysis, and through those types of work, they have to also be engaging the community within the project they are in. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity prior for a project even coming to the working group for the public to have input. We welcome more ideas from you, Keomailani, on how to improve that, particularly since Moloka'i, as you said, is special and unique. Linda, what would you like to add to that?
No, I think that.
Mahalo.
I don't think she can hear you.
It's okay, she said.
Okay, thank you, Keomailani. Okay. Zinda, can we do your question, and maybe we probably might have to go into wrap up after.
Sure, yeah, real quick, and it might be in there, it might be, but, we have representation from the various counties, projects will be very county specific. Is it intended that the other counties opine on that as a total group, or?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So just a quick comment, and maybe it's a question. I'm assuming as soon as we get the invitation to these meetings and we see the agenda, we can just contact you directly that time. We don't have to wait a week or two to come here to air something that could be fixed right before. So is that encouraged, or we have to wait until we come to this meeting, then say, by the way, I think there is an error here, or I think you should change this and all that?
Yes, I mean, we would definitely encourage members to communicate directly with us, especially if you have concerns. We're here to work together and help each other, help Maui, help our people who need housing. If you have any concerns about an agenda item or questions, process questions, please reach out to us directly. We'll be very responsive.
Thank you.
I think I think you covered it, and I just want to acknowledge the time. I know everyone's very, very busy. There's a lot going on right now, and there'll be a lot more for us to go over. We're at 10:35, and I think we're going to move into a wrap up of this first meeting. So maybe I can give it back to you, Nani, to do the wrap up.
I just have one, so
Can you rephrase that question? I'm not clear on what you mean by lead housing officer approved project.
there's a couple of provisions that allow the housing officer to allow the project to proceed of the working group. Those things after.
So that provision is for state and county projects, not for all projects.
Any project that gets any waiver.
Not any project. I'm trying to answer your question. Can I answer your question? Okay, it is for state and county projects. Linda can expound on that more for you if you need. What will happen is, if the lead housing officer, who at this moment happens to be me, it could be someone else in the future. If the lead housing officer makes the determination that a HPHE project or a DHHL project or a project for Maui under 2.96 or 97 right now needs to move quickly therefore comes forward with an application under this emergency proclamation. The housing officer, in their judgment, can make that determination. They can also decide how they're going to do that. Are they going to consult with water experts on this group, the planning experts in that county, the housing director in that county, get their input, make the decision? Then the state or county agency who that project belongs to, Hakeem still has to comply with all of his normal processes that he'd have to comply with anyway. Hakeem then becomes responsible, or HPHA I should say, becomes responsible for complying with all of the rules that are in the emergency proclamation. Hakeem becomes responsible and accountable for monitoring that project, essentially picking up the work of the working group on their own. That is what the state or county agency or proponent is going to have to do. They get, just similar to other applications, the criteria requires that you submit, you cite what you want to get an exemption from. So not every project application is going to want all the exemptions. Some applicants are only going to want very specific exemptions.
Be able to work this out more as we proceed, and I think the main thing we want to make sure is there's dialogue. There's continuous dialogue happening. We're interacting with each other, we're building shared understanding, and we're communicating and making information available to people as decisions happen and as projects move forward. So there'll be more materials getting prepared as we move forward. The website will continue to be updated. We have an FAQ that was prepared, a frequently asked questions that was prepared when the emergency proclamation was first released. There's more supplemental material being prepared as well for additional now frequently asked questions that we're getting. So we'll be continuing to update that, and we'll have URL and other material available as they come together. I think because we're at time, it's 10:40. We should move into wrap up. We would like everyone to save on your calendar for August 29th. From 9:30 to 11:30 is the next meeting. And so we'll be looking at making sure you get those materials and notice sufficiently in advance. Please follow up with us for questions or clarifications or tips or things that we can do better. Always looking for feedback. And as Nani mentioned, we have an email, gov.housing, HOUSING, @hawaii.gov. If folks have questions or would like to submit things or bring things to our attention, please use that email. I think that's about it. Nani, any?
Ask real quick, can you guys send us a calendar invite with like all the future times? I think it just helps with everybody's.
Sure. And I think what we're looking to do is the last Tuesday of each month.
Okay.
Is what we're looking at.
Yes, so feel free to also share that gov.housing@hawaii.gov with anybody you're getting questions from. Daniel, you feel free to direct people to email, the public to email that email. We are contemplating right now creating a separate email specifically for working group member business, mainly for us on our end, because there are hundreds of emails we're getting on a daily basis, and for us to just have one place we can all, I'm talking we staff, can go to check emails from this working group. It's going to help us better filter and make sure that we're responsive to whenever working group members email us. And we will be giving you that when we make that decision. And with that, thank you everyone for joining us. This first meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for those watching.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Bye.
Aloha, thank you.